Hi guys, in this video we are going to demonstrate to you the experiment in experiment 14.1. So basically I will demonstrate a series of experiments concerning about acid. So let's get started. Now first of all, we are using hydrochloric acid, and to that we are going to add blue litmus paper. Now to be specific, this is not actually a reaction. This is basically to show you what color will be expected to see if we add blue litmus paper into the hydrochloric acid. But I'm pretty sure you will know, you should be able to tell the color change. So right now I have a blue litmus paper, and just now I add the acid into it, and I will simply drop it into the test tube, and you see the blue litmus paper has changed into red. Now, for the second reaction, we are going to look into the reaction between metal and acid. In this case, we are going to use magnesium and calcium. So, again, with the test tube here, I'm going to add around 3 cm cube. Now, it doesn't have to be very precise, so I'm just going to add 2 pumps of acid. Okay, and then to that we are going to add magnesium. So we have a magnesium strip, okay, and we're just going to add it into the acid. And at the same time, I'm going to put a stopper on top, okay, and we are not actually stopping it, but instead we are trying to trap the gas inside. And then we are going to actually perform a burning screen test. As you can hear a pop sound, that means we will expect to have hydrogen gas that is formed between the reaction of acid and magnesium. Now we will do the same thing with calcium. So we want to study the reaction between calcium and hydrochloric acid. And to that we are going to add the calcium granule. And I want you to pay attention to the extent of reaction when compared to just now the magnesium. So you can actually see the calcium react much faster. And we will perform a burning screen test with this test tube again. As you can see, again, we are having a pop sound, meaning that it is also hydrogen being produced between the reaction of calcium and hydrochloric acid. Okay? So next, we are going to study the reaction between acid and metal oxide, also acid with metal hydroxide. And this time, we are going to use copper 2 oxide as an example, as well as calcium hydroxide as an example. We want to see the reaction between these oxide and hydroxide with hydrochloric acid. So first of all, I will get a test tube, and then to that I'm going to add again 2 pumps measure of hydrochloric acid. And then I will add 1/4 of a spatula of copper 2 oxide. Pay attention that copper 2 oxide is a black solid. Now, if you watch closely, do you think there is a chemical reaction involved? Is there any chemical reaction that has taken place? Actually, you don't. Um, you see, maybe you will be thinking that the solution has turned black, but actually this is only the copper 2 oxide that is suspending in the acid. And in fact, most of the copper 2 oxide has sunk to the bottom of the test tube. So there is no reaction and there is no observable change. But now, let's just try to heat it to see if any reaction would take place. Now remember, as you're heating liquid in the test tube, make sure you do a swirling motion and make sure you tilt the test tube to the direction where there is no people. So if it really spill out, people will not get injured by the liquid. Now, I think that should be quite obvious that the solution had changed from colorless to green, and also the black solid has dissolved. So you see there is a reaction between copper 2 oxide and hydrochloric acid, but bear in mind this reaction only takes place when we heat it. Okay? Now, we will do something very similar, but this time with calcium hydroxide. This time I will use calcium hydroxide. Again, 1/4, 1/4 of a spatula measure. So as you can see here, that the solution has turned colorless upon adding the solid. So you see the white solid has dissolved. So there is a reaction between calcium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid. We don't even have to heat it. So the reaction can take place without heating. So the fourth reaction, we are trying to study the reaction between carbonate and hydrochloric acid. Also, the reaction between hydrogen carbonate and acid. So first of all, we are going to use a test tube, and to that we are going to add lime water. Okay? So this is lime water, and to this lime water we are going to put in a delivery tubing. So a delivery tubing is this one with one end being longer than the other and the shorter end with a rubber band. So we will put the longer end into the lime water like this. Now, we need to prepare chemicals in another test tube. Here, we are going to add hydrochloric acid. Again, 2 measure of hydrochloric acid. And then, we are going to transfer some sodium carbonate. So sodium carbonate. But this time, we are going to carefully transfer small amount of carbonate onto the side of the test tube. So you need to be extra careful not to drop the sodium carbonate directly into the acid. But that's why you need to stay having the test tube really tilted, and you try to put it close to the mouth of the test tube. Just like that. Okay? So the acid is here, the sodium carbonate is here. Now, to that, we are going to connect the two test tubes. Remember, the one on my right hand side is the lime water. On my left hand side, it is the sodium carbonate and the acid, not yet mixed together. So we are going to now connect the delivery tubing to the test tube where we have the sodium carbonate. Make sure it is tightly sealed. Okay, so now we are going to drop carbonate. Actually, it has already dropped. Okay, and as the reaction takes place, you can see on my left hand side, there is a reaction between carbonate and acid, producing a lot of gas bubble. And on my right hand side, where the lime water is now gradually turns milky. So with the lime water turns milky, you know that there should be carbon dioxide being transferred to the lime water. And that also tells us that the reaction between carbonate and acid will produce carbon dioxide. So this is the idea. Okay, we are going to do a very similar experiment, but this time we are going to add sodium hydrogen carbonate. And I'm going to carefully add in the sodium hydrogen carbonate.
Again, make sure you tilt the test tube and then you add it to the side, but not actually dropping it to the acid. Okay, and now I'm going to connect the delivery tubing to the test tube.
And now I'm going to drop the sodium hydrogen carbonate into the acid. Oh, yeah. It's quite difficult to drop it in, so I'm actually going to drop it in first and then reconnect. Okay, so obviously you see that the reaction has taken place in a similar manner, and you will see bubbling occur on the test tube where the acid is, as well as the lime water has turned milky. So again, this experiment shows that the reaction between hydrogen carbonate and acid is able to produce carbon dioxide. So that basically shows you all the reactions, all the typical reactions with acid. So again, starting from the first experiment, we have added the blue litmus paper into the acid, and you see the blue litmus paper has turned red. In the second experiment, where we studied the reaction between metal and acid, we added magnesium and calcium to the acid, and both reaction is able to produce hydrogen as the product. We can show that using a burning spleen test. And comparing the two reactions, we see that the reaction between calcium and acid is actually faster and more vigorous than that between magnesium and acid. Now, in the third reaction, where we are exploring the reaction between metal oxide, metal hydroxide with acid. Now, we demonstrated using copper 2 oxide, which is a black solid, and when we add it into the hydrochloric acid, there is no observable change. And when we heat it with the Bunsen burner, then we see that the solution has turned green and the black solid has dissolved. Obviously, the green color is due to the copper 2 ions, Then we also do a very similar reaction with calcium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid. And basically, we see black solid has dissolved. Now, actually, I haven't shown it to you when I'm doing the demonstration. Actually, you will also expect to have the content getting warmer, much warmer. The reason is because the reaction between calcium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid is exothermic. That means that reaction releases quite a lot of heat, which is able to heat up the content. Okay, so bear in mind the reaction between metal hydroxide and the acid, not only does the white solid dissolve, but the content also gets warmer. Okay, and for the last series of experiments, we use a 2 test tube setup, and we try to study the reaction between carbonate and acid, as well as hydrogen carbonate with acid. Both reactions generate carbon dioxide, which is shown by the lime water changing from colorless to milky. And you also see that for both reactions, we see bubbling occurs. Okay, so that concludes all the experiments in 14.1, and that's the end of this video.